I didn't think much of it at first. That's the thing about moments that end up changing everything. They don't announce themselves. They don't feel heavy or important. They just slip in quietly, like any other night. And only later do you realize that was the beginning. The party wasn't even my idea. Trevor had dragged me there. Come on, Evan, you've been stuck in your apartment all week, he said, tossing me a hoodie like that alone would convince me. It's just a small thing. A few people. You'll survive. Trevor always said things like that, casual, confident, like the outcome was already decided. And most of the time, I let him decide for both of us. We'd been friends for almost 3 years. Same university, same major, same weird habit of staying up too late talking about things that didn't matter until they suddenly did. He was the kind of person people noticed without trying. Loud when he wanted to be, quiet when it counted. And me? I was just there, usually somewhere near him. So yeah, I went. The apartment was already packed when we got there, music too loud. People squeezed into every corner. That mix of cheap alcohol and cologne hanging in the air. Trevor blended in instantly, like he always did. Someone shouted his name from across the room, and just like that, he was gone. I grabbed a drink I didn't really want and leaned against the wall, scrolling through my phone out of habit more than interest. I remember watching him from across the room at one point. He was laughing, one arm slung around some guy's shoulders, completely at ease. It wasn't jealousy. I'd seen him like that 100 times. It was just noticing. The way he fit into spaces so easily, while I hovered at the edges of them. At some point, he came back. Hey, he said, nudging my shoulder. You alive? Barely, I replied. He grinned. Give it time. You'll loosen up. I doubt that. Wow. Optimistic. We stood there for a bit, talking about nothing. Classes. Some professor we both hated. Normal stuff. Comfortable. Then someone called him again. Don't disappear, he told me, pointing a finger like it was a warning. I make no promises. He rolled his eyes and left. I should have gone home then. Nothing was keeping me there. But I stayed. Maybe because he asked me to. Maybe because I didn't want to go back to an empty apartment. Maybe because some part of me already knew the night wasn't done with us yet. I just didn't know how. I lost track of time. At some point, the music got louder, the room hotter, conversations blurrier. People started leaving in small groups, laughter spilling into the hallway, doors opening and closing. I found Trevor again in the kitchen. He was quieter now, leaning against the counter, staring into a half-empty cup like he'd forgotten what it was for. You good? I asked. He looked up, blinking like he'd just noticed me. Yeah, he said. Just tired. That wasn't unusual. But something about the way he said it slower, heavier made me pause. You want to go? I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, let's get out of here. The walk back was colder than I expected. The kind of late-night chill that cuts through whatever buzz you had and leaves everything sharp again. We didn't talk much. Trevor walked a little ahead of me at first, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly tense. Not his usual relaxed posture. I noticed it, but I didn't push. You sure you're okay? I asked again when we reached my building. He glanced at me. Yeah, he said. Just weird night. Weird how? He shrugged. I don't know. Just as. That should have been the end of it. We got inside, kicked off our shoes, moved around each other like we always did. This wasn't new. He stayed over all the time. It was easy. Familiar. But something felt off. Subtle. Hard to name. Like the air had shifted slightly, and I was the only one who noticed. It started the next morning. I woke up to the sound of movement in the kitchen. Cups. Cabinets. The quiet rhythm of someone trying not to be loud. Trevor. I dragged myself out of bed, still half asleep, and walked out. He was standing by the counter, back to me, staring at his phone. Morning, I said. He flinched. Actually flinched. It was quick, but I saw it. Jesus, he muttered, turning around. You scared me. I frowned. I literally just said morning. Yeah, well, he ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my eyes. I didn't hear you. That wasn't like him. Trevor was always aware. Always present. You okay? I asked again. He nodded too fast. Yeah, just didn't sleep great. I leaned against the counter, watching him. There was something different in the way he moved. Slightly off timing. Like he was thinking too much about where to stand, what to do with his hands. You sure? I pressed. He finally looked at me. And for a second, just a second, there was something in his expression I couldn't place. Not anger. Not sadness. Something unsettled. I'm fine, Evan, he said, quieter now. I nodded slowly. Okay. But I didn't believe him. The next few days only made it worse. At first, it was small things. He'd pause mid-sentence like he forgot what he was saying, or look at me for a second too long, then glance away like he'd been caught doing something. Once, we were sitting on the couch, watching something neither of us cared about, and I felt at his eyes on me. I turned. He didn't look away fast enough. What? I asked. Nothing, he said quickly. Dude. Seriously. Nothing. But there was a slight smile on his face. Not teasing. Not amused. Just there. And that's when it started getting to me. Because Trevor wasn't acting like himself. He wasn't distant. He wasn't cold. If anything, he was more present than usual. Just different. Like he knew something I didn't. By the end of the week, I couldn't ignore it anymore. We were walking back from campus, side by side. The late afternoon sun hitting everything at that golden angle that makes the city feel softer than it actually is. You've been acting weird, I said. He didn't even pretend to misunderstand. Have I? Yes. He exhaled slowly, looking ahead. Define weird. You keep staring at me. That got a reaction. A small one, but enough. I do not. You do. Okay, he said, glancing at me now, maybe a little. Why? There it was. The question. Simple. Direct. And suddenly, everything felt heavier. Trevor stopped walking. I took a step ahead before realizing, then turned back to face him. He looked conflicted, like he was deciding something in real time. I don't know, he said finally. That's not an answer. I know. Then give me one. He held my gaze for a long second, then shook his head. Not yet. A pause. What does that mean? I asked. It means, he hesitated, then forced a small smile. Just give me a little time, okay? I should have pushed. I should have asked more. But something in his tone, something almost careful, made me stop. Okay, I said slowly. And that was the moment everything shifted. Because whatever was going on with Trevor, it wasn't random, and it definitely wasn't over. I tried to ignore it. For about 2 days. That was my limit. After that, it became impossible not to notice every little thing Trevor did, because once you start paying attention, you realize how much you've been missing. He didn't stop acting weird. If anything, he got worse at hiding it. It was Friday evening when things really started to feel off. We were back at my place, sitting on the floor with takeout containers between us, some random show playing in the background. Normal routine. Same as always. Except it didn't feel normal. Trevor was quieter than usual. Not in a bad mood way, just distracted. Like his mind was somewhere else, even though he was right there. You've been staring at that same piece of food for like 2 minutes, I said. He blinked, looking down at his plate like he'd forgotten it existed. Yeah. Sorry. You gonna eat it or just emotionally process it? That got a small laugh out of him. Shut up. But he still didn't take a bite. I watched him for a second longer than necessary. Trevor. You said you needed time. He froze. Not dramatically. Just a subtle stillness, like his body paused before his brain caught up. Yeah, he said slowly. It's been a few days. I'm aware. I leaned back on my hands, studying him. So, he exhaled through his nose, setting his fork down. I'm still thinking. About what? He looked at me then. Really looked. And that same feeling from before hit me again, that sense that he was seeing something I wasn't. You ever realize something about yourself? He said carefully. And wish you could just not realize it? I frowned. That sounds like a problem. Yeah, he muttered. It kind of is. Trevor. He rubbed the back of his neck, clearly debating how much to say. I don't want to mess things up, he admitted. That made my stomach tighten slightly. Mess what up? He gestured vaguely between us. This. I stared at him. Our friendship. I asked. He didn't answer right away. And that silence? That was louder than anything he could have said. Something shifted in my chest then. Not panic. Not exactly. Just awareness. Like all those small moments from the past week suddenly lined up into something that actually meant something. You're being really cryptic right now, I said, trying to keep my tone light. I know. Not helpful. I know that too. I sat up a little straighter. Then stopped doing that. He huffed out a quiet laugh, shaking his head. You make it sound so easy. It is easy, I said. You just say the thing. He looked at me like I'd just asked him to do something impossible. It's not just saying it, he said. It's what happens after. A pause. What do you think is going to happen? I asked. Another pause. Then, quietly. I don't know. And somehow, that felt worse than any specific answer. We didn't talk about it after that. Not because I didn't want to. but because Trevor shut down in that subtle way, he had still present, still there, just closed off enough that pushing would have made things worse. So we let the conversation die, went back to the show, ate in silence, pretended everything was normal. But it wasn't, and we both knew it. That night, he stayed over again. Not unusual, except this time, I was hyper-aware of it. Every movement, every sound, the fact that he was just in the next room. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out why everything suddenly felt so tense. Because nothing had actually happened. Nothing had changed. Except something clearly had. I must have dozed off at some point. Because the next thing I remember was waking up. Not fully, just enough to feel it. That feeling you get when you're not alone. My room was dark, the faint glow of streetlights cutting through the blinds. And then I saw it. A figure, standing near the door. Trevor. For a second, I didn't move. Didn't speak. My brain trying to catch up with what I was seeing. Trevor, I said, voice rough from sleep. He froze. Completely. Like I'd caught him doing something he wasn't supposed to. Sorry, he said quickly. Too quickly. I thought you were asleep. That doesn't explain why you're in my room. Yeah, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I know. He stopped. Didn't finish the sentence. I pushed myself up on my elbows, heart beating a little faster now. You just what? Silence. He glanced at me, then away, then back again. I couldn't sleep, he said finally. That's never stopped you before. I know. Then why now? Another pause. Longer this time. He stepped a little further into the room. Not close. Just closer. And suddenly, the air felt heavier. I didn't want to be alone, he said. That caught me off guard. Trevor, I know it sounds stupid. It doesn't sound stupid, I said slowly. It just doesn't sound like you. He let out a quiet breath. Yeah, he murmured. I've been noticing that. We held eye contact for a second longer than usual. Then two. Then, I've been thinking about what you said, he added. What I said. About me acting weird. I swallowed. Okay. And about messing things up. My chest tightened again. Trevor, just say it. He took another step closer. Close enough now that I could actually see his expression clearly. Nervous, but not uncertain. That was new. I don't think I can pretend this isn't happening anymore, he said. My heart picked up. What isn't happening? He looked at me like the answer was obvious. Like I should already know. And maybe part of me did. I keep noticing you, he said quietly. The room went very still. Not like before. A pause. Different. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Because suddenly, I was very aware of how close he was. Of how serious he sounded. Of how this was no longer just Trevor acting weird. This was something else. Something real. Trevor, I started. But I didn't know how to finish that sentence. And he didn't wait for me to figure it out. I don't know what it means yet, he admitted. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. He took a slow breath. But I know it started that night. The party. I asked. He nodded. What happened at the party? Another pause. Then, you. That didn't help. What about me? He hesitated. Just for a second. Then said it. I couldn't stop looking at you. And just like that, everything clicked into place. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of every moment from the past week suddenly making sense. The staring. The hesitation. The way he'd said he needed time. I felt my pulse in my ears. Trevor. I know, he said quickly. I know how this sounds. How does it sound? I asked. Like I'm about to ruin everything. That word again. Ruin. I sat up fully now, the distance between us suddenly feeling way too small and way too big at the same time. You think this ruins things? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. That's the problem. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping again. I've never, he started, then stopped himself. Never what? He looked at me, struggled, then forced it out. I've never felt like this about a guy before. There it was, out in the open. No more guessing. No more weird behavior. Just truth. And it hit harder than I expected. Not because it was shocking, but because it wasn't. Not really. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. Okay, I said. He blinked. Okay. Yeah. That's it. What do you want me to say? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. Something. I let out a quiet breath. I'm just processing. Yeah, he muttered. Same. We stood there for a moment, both of us caught in something that hadn't existed a week ago. Or maybe it had, and we just hadn't seen it yet. Are you freaked out? He asked after a second. I thought about it. About him standing in my room. About everything he'd just said. About the way my chest felt tight, but not in a bad way. No, I said honestly. That surprised him. Really? Yeah. A pause. Are you? I asked. He let out a short, quiet laugh. Yeah, he said. A little. Why? He looked at me like that was obvious. Because this is you. That landed deeper than I expected. We didn't move closer. Didn't do anything dramatic. We just stood there, in the middle of something new. Something neither of us fully understood yet. But one thing was clear now. Trevor wasn't just acting weird anymore. He was changing. And somehow, so was I? I didn't sleep much after that. Not because something dramatic happened, nothing did. Trevor didn't come closer. Didn't touch me. Didn't say anything else that crossed a line. He just stood there for another minute, like he was waiting for me to say something that would define everything. I didn't. Eventually, he nodded once, like he'd made some internal decision. I should go, he said. Yeah. I replied, even though part of me didn't want him to. He turned, walked out, and quietly closed the door behind him. And just like that, I was alone again. But it didn't feel like before. The room felt different, like something had been left behind. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over. I couldn't stop looking at you. I've never felt like this about a guy before. This is you. That last one stuck the most. Because I didn't know what that meant. Not fully, but I felt it. The next morning was strange. Not awkward exactly. Just hyper-aware. Trevor was already up when I walked into the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a cup of coffee. He looked normal. Too normal. Morning, he said. Morning. We held eye contact for a second longer than usual. Then both looked away at the same time. Yeah, definitely not normal. Did you sleep? I asked, grabbing a mug. Not really. Same. A pause. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. You sure? Yeah. Another pause. We were both doing it, keeping things light, safe, controlled. Like if we didn't say the wrong thing, nothing would break. Trevor exhaled slowly. About last night. There it was. I turned to face him. What about it? I meant what I said, he replied. I know. And I'm not expecting you to, he stopped, searching for the right words. Do anything with it. I leaned against the counter, watching him. I'm not asking you to figure anything out right now, he added. I just didn't want to keep acting like it wasn't there. That's fair. He studied my face carefully. You're being really calm about this. I shrugged slightly. Should I not be? I don't know, he admitted. I thought you might be weirded out. Are you hoping I am? I asked. No, he said quickly. No, I just. He stopped again. God, he was bad at this. And somehow, that made it feel more real. I'm not weirded out, I said after a moment. He looked relieved. Subtly, but it was there. Okay. But, I added, I am thinking about it. Yeah. Yeah. Good or bad? I hesitated. Because the truth was, I didn't know yet. Just thinking, I said. He nodded slowly, accepting that. We didn't define anything that morning. Didn't label it. Didn't turn it into something bigger than it already was. But the shift? That was permanent. Over the next few days, everything changed. Not dramatically, but in all the small ways that actually matter. We started noticing each other more. Before, being around Trevor had always been easy. Effortless. Automatic. Now, it was still easy, but it wasn't automatic anymore. There was awareness. Like when we were sitting next to each other in class. Our arms brushed. Normally, I wouldn't even register it. This time, I did. And so did he. I could tell by the way he went slightly still. Not pulling away. Just noticing. Same as me. Or when we were walking back from campus again, side by side like always. Except now, I was aware of how close we were. How our shoulders almost touched. How sometimes they actually did. And neither of us moved away. It wasn't uncomfortable. It just wasn't invisible anymore. The biggest change, though, was how Trevor looked at me. He didn't hide it anymore. Not completely. One afternoon, we were at my place again, sitting on opposite ends of the couch. I was talking about something, probably school, something boring, and I noticed it mid-sentence. The way he was looking at me. Focused. Quiet. Intent. I stopped talking. What? I asked. He blinked, like I'd pulled him out of something. Nothing. Dude. He exhaled, a small smile tugging at his lips. I'm doing it again, aren't I? Yeah, I said. Sorry. Don't apologize, I replied automatically. That surprised both of us. He tilted his head slightly. Don't apologize? I shrugged. I mean, you're just looking at me. That's the problem, he said. Why is that a problem? He held my gaze for a second longer, then said, quieter, because it's not just that. And there it was again. That tension, that honesty. I swallowed. Then what is it? He didn't answer right away, just leaned back slightly, like he needed space to think. I don't know how to explain it without making it weird, he admitted. It's already weird. That got a real laugh out of him. Yeah, fair. A pause. Then, it's like I'm seeing you differently, he said. Something in my chest tightened again. Different how? He looked at me like he was choosing his words very carefully, like I missed something before. That hit harder than anything else he'd said, because part of me understood exactly what he meant, even if I didn't want to admit it yet. You didn't miss anything, I said, a little too quickly. He raised an eyebrow. Really? Yeah. He leaned forward slightly now, resting his elbows on his knees. I think I did, he said. Silence stretched between us. Trevor. Evan. We spoke at the same time. Both stopped. Then he gestured for me to go first. I shook my head. No, you. He hesitated, then said it. Can I ask you something? Depends. He huffed a quiet laugh. Helpful. Ask. He studied me for a second. Then, have you ever thought about me like that? My heart skipped. There it was. The question I knew was coming. I could have dodged it, made a joke, changed the subject. But something about the way he asked, careful but direct, made that feel wrong. So I told the truth. At least part of it. I don't know, I said. He frowned slightly. That sounds like a yes. It's not a no. That landed. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Okay, he muttered. Okay, I echoed. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The air felt heavier again, but not in a bad way. Just real. Does that bother you? He asked after a second. I shook my head. No. Are you sure? Yeah. A pause. Does it bother you? I asked. He let out a quiet breath. No, he said, then added. It just makes this a lot less simple. I almost laughed. Trevor, this stopped being simple a while ago. Yeah, he said. I noticed. Another silence. But this one felt different. Less tense. More expectant. He looked at me again. That same look. But softer now. Less confused. More certain. I don't want to mess this up, he said. I nodded. Me neither. Okay. Okay. And somehow, that felt like an agreement. Even if we didn't know what we were agreeing to yet. That night, when we said goodnight, something else changed. Not big. Not dramatic. But enough. He lingered. Just for a second. Like he almost said something. Or did something. Then stopped himself. Night, Evan, he said. Night. He walked to the door. Paused. Then looked back at me. And there it was again. That look. This time, I didn't look away. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't fully admitted yet. This wasn't just Trevor changing. This wasn't just him figuring something out. I was already there. I just hadn't said it out loud yet. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. They couldn't. But they also didn't explode into something obvious either. No big confession, no sudden shift where everything became clear. Instead, it was quieter than that. Closer. It started with space disappearing. Not intentionally, just naturally. Trevor came over more. At first, it was small things. Hey, I'm bored. I'm coming over. Do you have food? I don't feel like going home yet. All normal excuses. Except before, he would have said them jokingly. Now, there was something underneath them. Something unspoken. And I didn't stop him. That was the part one noticed about myself. I didn't question it. Didn't push him away. If anything, I made space for it. One night, we were both sitting on my bed, laptops open, pretending to study. Neither of us was actually doing anything. Are you even reading that? I asked. He didn't look up. No. Same. A pause. Then he closed his laptop. I can't focus lately. Yeah, I muttered. I've noticed. He glanced at me. Not just because of school. I know. Silence settled between us. Not awkward. Just heavy with things we hadn't said yet. He leaned back slightly, resting against the wall. You ever feel like something's about to happen? He said. But you don't know what it is? I let out a quiet breath. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I nodded. Same. We didn't look at each other right away. But I felt it. That pull. That awareness that had been building for days now. You've been different too, he added after a second. That caught me off guard. Me? Yeah. How? He shrugged slightly. Eyes still on me now. You're not pretending this is nothing. I held his gaze. Neither are you. Yeah, he said quietly. I guess not. Another pause. Longer this time. The kind that stretches just enough to mean something. Trevor, I said. Yeah. What are we doing? There it was. The question we'd both been avoiding. He didn't answer right away. Didn't look away either. Just stayed there, thinking. I don't know, he admitted. That's not reassuring. I know. Then try again. That got a small smile out of him. You always do this. Do what? Push. I shrugged. Someone has to. He shifted slightly, sitting up straighter now. Closer. Not dramatically. Just enough to notice. I think, he started, then stopped. Tried again. I think I don't want to ignore this anymore. My chest tightened. Okay. But I also don't want to rush into something and mess it up. Also fair. He exhaled slowly. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I nodded. Because I understood that feeling more than I wanted to admit. Then maybe we stop overthinking it, I said. He frowned slightly. That sounds like bad advice. Maybe, I admitted. But this whole thing started because you were overthinking, didn't it? That landed. He huffed a quiet laugh. Yeah, probably. So stop. And do what instead? I hesitated. Because I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I just wasn't sure I was ready to say it out loud. Just be honest, I said finally. With you? With me? With yourself? Same thing right now. He looked at me differently then. More focused. More certain. I am being honest, he said quietly. Then keep going. Silence again. But this time, it felt like something was about to break. I like being here, he said. I swallowed. I like you being here. No, he shook his head slightly. That's not what I mean. I didn't speak. Didn't interrupt. I like being around you, he corrected. More than before. My heart picked up. Okay. And it's not just because you're you. That's not helpful, Trevor. I know, he muttered. I'm trying. He ran a hand through his hair again, frustrated. Then looked at me like he was forcing himself not to back out. When I'm not with you, he said slowly, I notice it. There it was. That same honesty from the other night. Unfiltered. Real. Notice what? I asked, even though I already knew. You not being there. That hit. Harder than I expected. And that didn't used to happen, he added. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. I get that. Another pause. But now, the distance between us felt smaller. Evan, he said. Yeah. His voice shifted slightly. Lower. More certain. I don't think this is just a phase. The words settled between us. Heavy. Final in a way nothing else had been yet. I felt my chest tighten again. Not from fear. From recognition. Yeah, I said quietly. I don't think so either. And that was it. No big moment. No dramatic shift. Just two people finally admitting what had been obvious for a while. But admitting it. That changed everything. Because now, there was no pretending. No hiding behind confusion. No calling it weird behavior. Now it was real. And real things? They don't stay still for long. Trevor shifted slightly again. Closer this time. Close enough that I could feel the warmth from him. You're really calm about this, he said. I let out a small breath. I'm not calm. You look calm. I'm just not running. That made something in his expression soften. Good, he said quietly. We stayed like that for a second. Then another. No one moved. But no one pulled away either. Can I ask you something? He said. Depends. He rolled his eyes slightly. Seriously? Ask. He hesitated. Then, do you want this? My heart skipped. There it was. Clear. Direct. No room to hide. I looked at him. At how serious he was. At how much this clearly mattered. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I said. Something shifted in his expression immediately. Relief. Real, visible relief. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. And then, nothing. No sudden move. No dramatic moment. Just closeness. But this time, it felt different. Not uncertain. Not confusing. Intentional. And that was somehow more intense than anything else. Because now, we both knew exactly where this was going. Even if neither of us had taken that final step yet. It didn't happen right away. That's probably what made it feel real. After that conversation, after we both said it out loud, yeah, I want this, you'd expect something immediate. A shift. A moment. Something obvious. But Trevor didn't move. And neither did I. We just stayed there. Close. Aware. It was almost frustrating. Not in a bad way, just intense. Like standing on the edge of something and knowing exactly what's on the other side, but neither of you taking the step yet. Trevor exhaled slowly. Okay, he said again, quieter this time. I let out a small breath. Yeah. Another pause. Then, he shifted slightly closer. It wasn't dramatic. If someone walked in, they probably wouldn't even notice. But I felt it immediately. My heart picked up. Not fast. Not panicked. Just steady and heavy. You're not going to back out, right? He asked. I frowned slightly. From what? This? He said, gesturing subtly between us. I shook my head. No. He studied my face for a second, like he needed to be sure. Okay, he said again. Then he did something small. Something that shouldn't have felt like a big deal. But it did. He reached for my hand. Not suddenly. Not grabbing. Just slowly. Like he was giving me time to stop him. I didn't. Our fingers touched first. Light. Testing. Then settled. It was simple. Just hands. But it felt like everything. Trevor let out a quiet breath, like he'd been holding it longer than he realized. Still okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. He nodded slightly. Didn't let go. We sat there like that for a while. Not talking. Not moving. Just adjusting to the fact that this was real now. It wasn't overwhelming. It was grounding. Like everything that had been confusing before suddenly made sense in the simplest way possible. After a minute, he glanced down at our hands. Then back up at me. That wasn't as terrifying as I thought it'd be, he admitted. I huffed a quiet laugh. High praise. I'm serious. I know. Another pause. But this one felt lighter. Trevor shifted again, just slightly. Close enough now that our shoulders touched. Neither of us pulled away. You feel that? He asked. Feel what? This, he said. How different it is. I nodded slowly. Yeah. Because it was different. Not just because of the hand. Not just because of what we'd said. It was the intention. Before, everything between us had been accidental. Unspoken. Something you could pretend wasn't there if you tried hard enough. Now, there was no pretending. Now, every small thing meant something. Trevor looked at me again. That same look. But calmer now. Less conflicted. I keep thinking I'm gonna mess this up, he said. You haven't yet. Give me time. I smiled slightly. Not reassuring. He laughed softly. Yeah, I'm bad at this. No, I said. You're just new at it. That made him pause. Yeah, he admitted. That sounds better. Silence again. But comfortable this time. Then, I thought it was just the party, he said. What do you mean? That it was just a moment. Or something I imagined. I shook my head slightly. Does this feel imagined to you? He glanced down at our hands again. Then back at me. No. Then it's not. That seemed to settle something in him. He nodded once. Firm. Okay, he said again. We stayed like that for a while longer. Until eventually, the moment softened. Not ended. Just eased. Trevor let go of my hand first. Not pulling away. Just releasing. I should probably go home, he said. That surprised me. You don't have to. I know. Then why? He hesitated. Then said it honestly. Because if I stay, I'm not going to think clearly. That made my chest tighten slightly. Not in a bad way. Just real. Is that a bad thing? I asked. He looked at me. Really looked. No, he said quietly. Then why leave? He smiled slightly. Not teasing. Just honest. Because I want to do this right. That landed. Hard. I nodded slowly. Okay. He stood up. I stayed sitting, watching him. For a second, it felt like something was unfinished. Like there was still one more step neither of us had taken. He felt it too. I could tell. Because he didn't leave right away. He stood there, looking at me. Then, he stepped closer again. Not sitting this time. Just standing in front of me. Evan, he said. Yeah. His voice was different again. Lower. More certain. I'm really glad it's you. That hit deeper than anything else had. Yeah. I asked. Yeah. A pause. Me too, I said. Something in his expression softened completely after that. And then, he leaned in. Not fast. Not rushed. Careful. And we kissed. It wasn't intense. Wasn't overwhelming. It was simple. But it changed everything. When he pulled back, he didn't move far. Just enough to look at me. Okay, he said quietly. I smiled slightly. Okay. And for the first time since all of this started, nothing felt uncertain anymore. Just new. And real. And finally, honest. After that, everything felt quieter. Not in a bad way. Just settled. Trevor didn't stay long after we kissed. Which, honestly, surprised me. Not because I expected anything more, but because it felt like something that should have stretched longer. Like a moment you sit in. Instead, he stepped back, ran a hand through his hair, and let out a breath like he'd just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Okay, he said again, almost to himself. Okay, I echoed. He smiled slightly. Not nervous. Not unsure. Just processing. I'm gonna go, he said. I nodded. Yeah. But neither of us moved right away. Again, it was becoming a pattern. These pauses. These almost moments that stretched just enough to mean something. "You're sure you're okay?" he asked. "I should be asking you that." He huffed a quiet laugh. "Fair." Another second. Then finally, he turned and left. The door closed. And just like that, I was alone again. But this time, it didn't feel uncertain. It felt real. I sat there for a while, not moving, replaying it. Not the kiss itself, but everything around it. The way he looked at me. The way he said, "I'm really glad it's you." That part stuck. Because it wasn't just about what happened. It was about why. And for the first time, I wasn't questioning it. The next morning, I woke up expecting things to feel awkward. Weird. Different in a bad way. They weren't. Trevor texted me first. "Trevor, you alive?" I stared at the message for a second, then replied, "Me? Barely. You?" "Trevor." "Same." Pause. "Trevor, come get coffee?" That was it. No mention of last night. No overthinking. Just normal. I smiled without realizing it. "Me? Yeah. Give me 10. When I met him outside the cafe, he looked exactly the same. Same hoodie. Same slightly messy hair. Same Trevor. But when he saw me, that changed. His expression softened. Just slightly. But enough. "Hey," he said. "Hey." We stood there for a second, both of us clearly aware of everything that had shifted. But neither of us rushed to define it. "Coffee?" he asked. "Yeah." Inside, everything felt almost easy. We talked like we always did. Classes. Random stuff. A story about something dumb that happened in one of his lectures. But underneath it, there was something new. Not tension. Not awkwardness. Connection. At one point, he paused mid-sentence. Just stopped. Looking at me. "What?" I asked. He shook his head slightly, smiling. "Nothing. Trevor. I'm just," he hesitated, then said it anyway. "Still getting used to this." "This?" I asked. He gestured lightly between us. "Yeah. This." I nodded slowly. "Me too." Another small pause. "But it's not bad," he added quickly. "Yeah," I said. "I know." Because it wasn't. Not even a little. After coffee, we didn't separate like we normally would. We walked. No destination. Just walking. At some point, our hands brushed. We both noticed. This time, he didn't hesitate. He reached for my hand again. Just like before. Slow. Careful. And again, I didn't stop him. This time, though, it felt easier. Less like a question. More like an answer. We kept walking like that. Side by side. Fingers loosely intertwined. No one stopped us. No one stared. The world just kept moving. "You're really calm," he said after a while. "You keep saying that." "Because you are." I shrugged slightly. "I don't feel calm." "What do you feel?" I thought about it. About everything that had happened. About how fast things had shifted. Then said the first honest thing that came to mind. "Like this makes sense." He didn't respond right away. Then, "Yeah," he said quietly. "It does." We slowed slightly as we reached a crosswalk. Stopped. Waited. And for a second, everything felt still again. Not tense. Not uncertain. Just full. Trevor glanced at me. That same look. But now, there was no confusion in it. Just certainty. "I meant what I said last night," he told me. "I know. I'm serious." "I know," I repeated. He nodded slightly. "I don't want this to be something temporary," he added. That caught me off guard. "Yeah?" I asked. "Yeah." A pause. "I don't either," I admitted. That was the moment it shifted again. Because up until now, everything had been about figuring it out. Now, we weren't figuring it out anymore. We were choosing it. The light changed. We crossed the street. Still side by side. Still connected. And for the first time since that party. Since everything started. Nothing about Trevor felt confusing anymore. He wasn't acting weird. He wasn't unsure. He was just here. With me. And somehow, that felt more intense than anything else so far. After that day, there wasn't really a way to go back. Not that either of us wanted to. It didn't turn into something dramatic overnight. No big announcement. No sudden shift where everything had to be labeled and explained. But it became consistent. Trevor didn't hesitate anymore. That was the biggest change. Before, everything he did felt like he was testing the ground. Now, he just stepped forward. He came over without making excuses. He stayed without overthinking it. And when we were together, there was no pretending that this was anything less than what it was. One evening, about a week after everything shifted, we were back at my place. Same couch. Same space where none of this used to exist. Trevor was stretched out next to me, scrolling on his phone while I half-watched something on TV. At some point, he just moved closer, rested his head lightly against my shoulder. No hesitation, no checking, just natural. I went still for a second, not because it felt wrong, because it didn't. "You good?" he asked quietly, not moving. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. That was the thing. Nothing about this felt forced. If anything, it felt like we just stopped ignoring something that had been there longer than we realized. "You're thinking again," he murmured. "You always know. You get quiet." I glanced down at him. "You don't." He shook his head slightly. "No. I just stay." That hit. Simple, but real. "Good," I said. We stayed like that for a while. No pressure. No need to fill the silence. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't overanalyzing anything. But that didn't mean everything was completely easy. A few days later, reality showed up. We were on campus, walking like we always did, talking about nothing important. Then we saw people we knew. A group from our classes. Loud. Familiar. Trevor slowed slightly. Not stopping. Just aware. I felt it immediately. That shift. Before, this wouldn't have mattered. Now, it did. "Yo, Evan," someone called out. I nodded, forcing a casual smile. "Hey." They pulled us into a quick conversation. Same usual stuff. Classes. Assignments. Weekend plans. Trevor stood next to me. Close. But not touching. Not distant either. Just careful. And I realized something in that moment. This wasn't about what happened between us anymore. That part was clear. This was about everything around it. When the conversation ended and we walked away, the silence between us felt different. Not heavy, just thoughtful. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah." "You sure?" "Yeah," I said again. Then added, "You?" He hesitated. Just for a second. "Yeah," he said. "Just thinking." I nodded. "About?" He exhaled slowly. "This." There it was again. "What about it?" I asked. He glanced at me, then ahead. "I don't want to act like you don't matter when other people are around." That stopped me, because that wasn't what I expected him to say. "I didn't think you were doing that," I said. "I noticed it," he replied. "Even if you didn't." I stayed quiet. Let him continue. "I don't want this to be something that only exists when it's just us," he said. That hit deeper than anything else so far, because it meant he'd already thought about it. Not just the easy parts, the real ones. "You don't have to figure everything out right now," I said. "I know." "Then don't rush it." He nodded. "I'm not rushing." A pause. "I'm just not ignoring it either." I understood that. We kept walking. Closer this time. Not touching, but not avoiding it either. And somehow, that felt just as important. That night, back at my place again, everything felt a little more grounded. Not just new. Not just intense. Real. Trevor sat next to me on the bed, quieter than usual. Not distant. Just thinking. "You regret it?" I asked. He looked up immediately. "What?" "This," I said. "Us." His expression shifted instantly. Clear. Certain. "No," he said. Not hesitant. Not unsure. "Just no." "Good," I said quietly. He studied me for a second. "Do you?" I shook my head. "No." A pause. Then he smiled slightly. "That's good." Another quiet moment settled between us. Then, "I don't think I've ever been this sure about something I don't fully understand yet," he admitted. I let out a small breath. "Yeah. Yeah. Yeah," I repeated. "Same." That seemed to settle something in him. He leaned back slightly, relaxing. Closer again. No hesitation. And this time, neither of us questioned it at all. Because whatever this was, it wasn't temporary. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't just after a party. It was something real. Something growing. And for once, neither of us was trying to stop it. It didn't hit me all at once. Not in some dramatic, life-changing moment. It was slower than that. It happened in pieces. Like the way Trevor stopped hesitating completely. Not just when we were alone, but everywhere. A few days after that conversation on campus, we were sitting outside near one of the buildings, late afternoon, people passing by in every direction. Same kind of setting where, before, everything felt uncertain. Now, it didn't. Trevor was talking about some story about a professor, and halfway through it, he just reached for my hand. No pause. No glance around. Just did it. I felt it immediately. That small shift. Not in the action itself. In what it meant. I looked at him. "You don't care anymore, do you?" I said. He glanced at me, confused for a second. "About what?" "People." He followed my glot for a second, noticing the people around us. Then looked back at me. I care, he said. A pause. But not more than this. That was it. That was the moment. Not the kiss. Not the first night he stood in my room. Not the conversation where everything started. This. Because this was the first time it existed outside of just us. And he chose it anyway. I felt something settle in my chest. Something that had been shifting for weeks. Okay, I said quietly. He studied my face. You good? I nodded. Yeah. And I was. Because whatever this was, it wasn't fragile anymore. It could exist in the open. That night, back at my place, everything felt different again. Not new. Not intense. Stable. Trevor was lying next to me, staring at the ceiling. Quiet. You remember the party? He asked suddenly. I let out a small breath. Hard to forget, considering everything started there. He smiled slightly. Yeah. A pause. I almost didn't say anything, he admitted. That made me turn my head toward him. Why? He shrugged lightly. Because it was easier not to. That made sense. Too much sense. What changed? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. You, he said. That hit in a quiet way. How? I asked. You didn't make it weird, he said. You didn't shut me down. You didn't pretend it wasn't happening. I exhaled slowly. I didn't know what it was yet. Yeah, he said. Me neither. Another pause. But I knew I didn't want to lose you over it, he added. That landed deeper than anything else. Same, I said. We stayed quiet after that. Then, he shifted slightly closer. Not dramatic. Just enough. I was acting weird though, he admitted. I huffed a quiet laugh. You think? He smiled. Yeah. A little creepy at times, I added. Okay. Relax, he said, laughing softly. But you noticed, he said after a second. Of course I noticed. Good, he murmured. I frowned slightly. Why is that good? He looked at me. Because it means I wasn't the only one feeling something. That stopped me. Because he was right. He wasn't. I just hadn't said it first. You weren't, I said quietly. Something in his expression softened again. Yeah, he said. We didn't need to say more. Because at this point, everything that mattered had already been said. Later that night, as we were getting ready to sleep, Trevor paused at the door. You ever think about how close we were to just ignoring all of this? He asked. I leaned against the wall, thinking about it. Yeah, I said. Would have been easier. Maybe, I admitted. A pause. But not better. He nodded. Yeah, he said. Not better. He didn't leave this time. He stayed. And as I lay there, staring at the ceiling again, just like the night everything started, I realized something. Nothing about this felt accidental anymore. Not the party. Not the way he looked at me. Not the way things slowly shifted until we couldn't ignore it. It all led here. To something real. Something chosen. Something that didn't need to hide. Trevor turned slightly toward me, voice quieter now. Hey. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't ignore it. I smiled slightly. Me too. And for the first time since that night, there was nothing strange about him anymore. Just Trevor. And us.